talking about the pain patient or any patient and your professional relationship. And sometimes it's amazing. I think doctors and other professionals would be very surprised at the relationships that are not there. And when they're not there, there's not very good healing. We have heard a lot about mind and body, and if the mind is not happy or wanting to be healed or not understanding or frustrating, the body, it has a hard time. And there are plenty of places where people can speak about that, understand it, so we're not going to go into that. But the patient and professional relationship, you know when that begins? It begins the moment the patient walks in your door. And it could be before that, actually. But it begins the second they walk through the door. Now, maybe you think you have to spend a lot of money and make your waiting room beautiful. No. That typically is nice for some people, but for some of us, it's like, I don't know, there's just a nice waiting room is fine. So don't feel like you have to go overboard. Now, the second thing that your patient is going to judge you on is the first employee that they meet. In most cases, that is the receptionist, desk person, whatever you want to call them. And all the signs, oh my goodness, all the signs around your window. Don't do this, or we're going to do this, and you have to have this, or we're not going to do this, and if you want this, then it's going to be $25, and don't knock on the glass, and just keep that in mind. I don't even know what to say about it. Then they meet the receptionist. Okay, when you're hiring for a receptionist, and maybe that's an outdated word, but that's what I'm going to call them. It does not matter who they are, what they look like, as long as it's within professional limits. What matters is their attitude. Now, I'm well aware, being a manager over 30 or so people before becoming disabled, that we all have problems. And those receptionists have problems. In fact, most of your staff do. Some are going through a divorce, some have maybe a loved one with cancer, maybe someone has been diagnosed with something, someone's child is sick, or they're having trouble with teenagers. They're going, you know, the list is too long, and your life. But when you walk in that door, your life becomes on hold, because it becomes about the patient. And that is the first thing most patients complain about. It's the staff. And I do not want to pick on the staff, because there's a way for patients to treat staff, but unfortunately, that is the major complaint. Okay, so you have interviewed this person, but you just have a feeling that they don't fit in that spot. So obviously you can go on and tell them you will let them know, and please let them know. A phone call, is nice. Thank you for coming in. We have chosen someone else, but I appreciate your time. That goes a long way. Okay. Let's say you're interviewing your staff, this receptionist, and she mentions, she mentions to you that they have done accounting before, but they really didn't care for the company. And yes, they were familiar with insurance and the coding and all of that, but again, it just didn't work out. And you kind of push a little harder to find out, and it just wasn't a good fit. And now they have kind of given up, and they're applying to be the front desk person. What if you needed what they are giving up? What if you needed and you like this person, they present themselves well, they're very expressive, and you can tell they are knowledgeable about accounting and numbers and insurance and coding, and you're thinking, I really need somebody like that. Don't be afraid to change the interview to the niche of who you're interviewing. And many times we're too afraid to do that, because here they are. They're here to interview for a certain job, and you realize they have some talent and have not been pleased. And so they're kind of giving up. And you could use them, and you like their personality, you like what they say. So pick employees according to their niche or niche. I guess everybody can say it different. So you could say, I have this opening, and you can go from there. Now, I will tell you, maybe you don't need that kind of person at that point. But if you think pretty quick down the road, you might hire them. I remember my husband deciding to go on an interview, which he was asked if he would come. And he said, okay, I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to be anything. I just want to work. And he'd been in the industry for, since he was about 15 or 16. And we're talking now in our 50s or 40s. So he just was tired of messing with that. Well, they liked what they saw in him for what he was applying for. And they said, we aren't really looking, but we're taking you because of your experience. And it took about 6 months before he had, his own thing and was doing it. It was worth it. It was worth it. 20 years, it was worth it. And it was worth it for them. So never be afraid. We always think about money. Don't be afraid to just jump off the cliff. You have, in order for you not to have burnout, you've got to have a staff that is connecting with you. And if they're not connecting, if they're not engaging, if they don't know how to engage with other people, other employers, employees, etc., you have a problem. So grab if you have to switch. I kind of wanted to throw that in there. So pick Make sure that you're the person that you're interested in and you really, really like, that is the best place for them. Okay, so now we're back to trying to find that receptionist, okay? So let's read this. A successful manager or employee in the workplace, and when I say manager, this could apply all the way up the chain, that has special traits that cause the department and the company to be successful and an enjoyable place to work. That is what a successful company, president, CEO, owner, whatever, that's what they do. They choose people that have special engaging traits that helps their business be successful. That needs to be in the back of your mind all the time. I'm sure you know this, but employee retention is one of the best attributes of a department. And the company, as it brings in a close environment between each other, you've got different employees, different personalities. But some of the simple rules keeps relationships in good standing. And I go back to finding the right niche for yourself, for others. That's a high priority. Because if you want your employees to work well with others and to work well with your customers or patients, and if you want them to stay and not have to train and train and train, because that is money, then that's part of it. Will they fit into your environment? Now, I used to hire and unfortunately fire, but not very much. And that's one thing that I watched from the moment they walked in and sat down and began to talk. And I chatted. I didn't go through this. What's your, where do you want to be in 5 years? And I'm not saying that's not necessary. But I wanted to see how they just handled themselves with anybody. And I was relaxed and sitting back and just chatting about life, chatting about, whatever. Because it gives you an idea, a little bit of their personality. Are they laughing? Do they smile a lot? Are they very serious? Well, yeah, they're on an interview, but interviews are like dating. You have to check it out pretty good, and you're trying to look your best and do your best and say the right thing. But you want not only a good employee, but one that will stay. Now, employee retention also falls on your part, and that's another story. That will be another time, another spot. But you want them to stay, you want them to be happy, and it's nice to spend some time with them, each employee, every once in a while, even if it's 2 minutes. Because knowing your employees and knowing what they're going through shows them you care. Let's follow a patient. So we can see this maze here. Often we're not aware of the path that the patient takes to get to the office. Okay, well, there's traffic, there's crazy drivers out there, which, who knows, maybe they're one. But take notice next time that you drive up to your building, office, whatever, take notice. Do they have to park and pay? Do they have to try to find an elevator? in the garage, or do they walk in and they're just like, I don't know what, okay, this goes from 2 to 10 and this elevator goes from 10 to 20, and just what kind of atmosphere and what are they going through? If it's difficult, you can tell them, or whoever is doing it would tell them. Now, it's a little challenging at times to find us. So first of all, I'm going to send you via email something that will help you, a little map that will help you. Please make the map simple. And also downstairs, we have someone, hopefully, that will help you. But if you have any trouble, you call. Now, it's pretty rare that you get anyone to answer, so make sure that you give them a phone number that someone's going to answer. Okay, so they're getting dressed, they're feeling bad. Now, this is the patient. Now we're back to the patient, okay? Going to meet this person that you have at the front. Feeling crummy. Maybe they have to find a ride, and maybe that's difficult. Maybe they have to take a taxi. Maybe they drive and they're scared, and everybody's honking at them. Then they arrive. They are stressed. Do not take their blood pressure at this point. If you're one of these where they can walk in and do their paperwork real quick or check in or whatever and go right to the back, you're setting them up for medications and treatments they don't need if you don't let them calm down. So, the unknown ahead, they've never met you, or maybe they have. The fear of acceptance. One thing I don't think a lot of people understand, and when I say people, I'm talking the medical profession of nurses up to doctors. There is a fear of unbelief and not being accepted, and you're going to say you need a psychologist, it's all in your head, and the fear of the lack of knowledge that they have as a patient, and possibly you have. Will you understand what they're trying to tell you? And sometimes some of us, especially TBI, we have a hard time explaining ourselves, especially early on. And you almost have to learn that language of TBI. So how do you confirm their worth? You confirm their worth by, number one, that person at the front, greeting them, hello, welcome. And eventually people get to realizing who is the new patient. And the new patient walks in and they don't recognize them. Oh, hi, are you Mrs. Turner? You can take that chance because usually you're right, or whatever. Welcome, I'm so glad you got here. Did you get here okay? Okay, well, let's get you checked in. You want them to feel that they are the only patient and they are very important and you can hardly wait to see them. And a lot of times when I say that, nurses especially will say, oh my goodness, do you realize I'm going to be stuck in a conversation and this is going to take forever? No, you are making a big impression. And training your patients will help a lot too. Another story, okay? Do you realize from the front person that they see, the front desk, all the way up until they see the person they're looking for, you are already judged before your client or your patient has spoken to you. So you don't have to be seen or heard, and there's already judgment. If they walk in and they do not feel welcome, if they feel confused and are kind of made to feel like, you don't know that, that's not a good start. It begins at the beginning. That's profound. Sometimes you have an angry patient, and that is not uncommon, especially with pain patients. How is your training with your employees? Do you hire them and put them in their place, tell them to start working? Or do you have some type of training? It doesn't have to be days, but can it, unless their job needs training, but an hour or two learning about patient relationships is number one. And you wouldn't think that that would probably shoot you to the top, but it does. There are ways to deal with angry patients, and you can put that fire out pretty quick. That needs to be documented. This patient appears upset. Remember, documentation, but also kind and considerate, because who knows who or when they might see this. You may have a confident patient. Hello, my name's Kathy. I'm here to see Dr. Smith, and here's my paperwork. Just a pleasant patient. All of this, their personality and how their personality is handled, is the difference between a successful or non-successful visit. Sadly, when I have asked, I've gone in some groups, some of them are 20,000 people, some of them are 100, 100 people, some of them are 1,000 people. That is one thing they all say, is I want to be treated like I am of value. I want to be treated nice. I want to be believed. I want to be treated. I want to be treated. In other words, it's not always the treatment. It's how they are treated. Blame the patient, but could it be the journey of reaching your office and finally getting to you? I have been in places where I am almost ready to say, hang it up. And I am not an angry patient. I'm an educated patient, confident patient. But you just reach a time after you have been to doctors, and when you run into roadblocks and bad attitudes, I'm not real sure about the doctor once I see him. Because why are you allowing that patient to be, why are you allowing that employee to act like that? Well, number one, it's because you probably don't know. And I think if someone sat in your office pretending to look on their phone but videoing, I think you'd be shocked. And when the patient brings this up to you, every time, I would say, all right, not every time, 98% of the time, the doctor or whoever has an excuse. Oh, no, and the excuses are crazy. Oh, you can get to me anytime. Yeah, you just get to the portal. Yeah, well, I can't, and I can't get anyone to help. Well, yeah. Believe your patients. If they are telling you something, put that in the back of your brain there for when you can think, You will lose them because guess what? That's going to go on Yelp and everything else. A lot of times, you are going to get people telling everyone about their experience getting to you, but rarely do they mention a whole lot if it's very smooth. So, remember that. When I ask some doctors, a handful, and I have 2 hands and 2 feet, so I can get quite a few answers. I've noticed that they don't hesitate. When I ask them, what is the biggest frustration or to you, or what do you feel holds you back? What do you feel makes you not happy at the end of the day? Or what makes you go home grumpy? What makes you not really want to be a doctor or nurse or whatever you are? What is it that is causing you to be burned out and just wish you never had to return again? I never want to come across as picking on people because we can teach. But I would say 98% of the time, they don't think and they say employees. So if that's the case, number one, you need to choose the right employees. You need to believe what you hear. And you know those little boxes where when you check out and the lady hands him this little survey and says, you want to fill out this survey? A lot of times you're going to get pretty good surveys because we don't really trust, especially if it comes by email, we don't really trust that they're confidential. And we don't really say everything we want to say. Now, sometimes you do, but keep in mind your employees are your representatives. And I don't really think a lot of that is recognized. And I know I had to be very cognizant of that. Is anyone that crossed anyone's path before they got to me kind of set me up. Now I might flip it and then have a talk, but if you do not have good employees, from the front desk to the person taking the blood pressure, from the person talking to them about their history, from the PA, whatever, and getting to you, if they don't feel valued, listened to, believed, they may stick with you, but they're not happy. And a lot of people will know that, but you won't. And a happy patient is a compliant. They may be educated enough to question you, and that's great. A happy patient is more than likely not going to complain about things that can get you in trouble. And believe me, I have sat and just horror watched things that's like, this doctor, this innocent doctor, could be in huge trouble because they're allowing or don't know what's really going on. And I sometimes mention, and I'm not believed, and they know what I do. So the key to your success at work and at home is being aware of your attitude, how you carry it to work and how you carry it home, the key to influencing others' success in the workplace and at home. These are things that we're going to talk about. My son called me one day, knowing that I taught different classes. And he said, "Mom, I come home and I am so stressed. And I bring it home and my wife is not real happy with me, and I'm just going nuts. I remember you said you did something to separate work from day when you left, and then you did something when you got to work to separate home from work. So we had a discussion." I don't give away all my secrets for free. So I don't think, if you could just see what patients have to say about doctors and their visits, what goes on with their employees, I really think you would be horrified. And you know, sometimes I tell my stories and and their jaw drops. It couldn't happen to them. It does. Now, are you confident enough as a owner, doctor, head of your practice, a manager, coordinator? Are you strong enough to deal with it? And that's where a lot of problems come in, is that you don't want to deal with it, you don't know how to deal with it, and it's not hard. And so you keep hoping it will change, and maybe you talk to them, but you know, if you want it good, if you want a successful practice, if you want to enjoy your work, if you don't want to come home and your wife is so frustrated, or husband, I'm sorry, is so frustrated because you're frustrated and you're taking it out on them, and you're, you know, well, I don't think I have to tell you about your life. Always go back and look at yourself in the mirror, and then look at each employee in the mirror of your mind. Attitudes, bringing problems to work, one pitting against the other, gossip, not pulling their load, or not realizing another needs help and is overwhelmed, and possibly you have a little extra time. You know, there's so much. And yet it takes so little time to train them. Where I worked, we had to take the class, which was a couple hours, and that can easily be whittled down because we would do things, but then we signed a contract. And if we did not follow the contract, it was grounds for termination. I could be rude, and if I was seen being rude, that was grounds for termination. Now, I don't think I have to say this, but a lawyer would need to be involved. But also knowing your employees, sensing when they're struggling, and knowing what to do to help them at that moment. And it only takes a second or two. When you are the person that everyone wants to work for, you have succeeded. Because if everyone wants to work for you, everyone wants to be your patient. And I think that is the story. There's little parts that go in, weaving in and out. You have to be trained. It's not long. Your employees have to be trained. Your managers have to be trained. It's not rocket science, believe me. But unfortunately, we have gotten away from that. And we've gotten away from making people accountable. And so we end up unhappy, stressed, and the worst thing is you go home and your family is miserable. You only get one chance at life. Don't mess it up. Don't be too proud to say, well, I know how to do surgery, but I don't really know how to hire people. It's not hard. We make it hard. It's not hard. When your patients see you care, and there's little steps to making them feel that way, but they're not hard steps, you are successful. But it's the first thing they come in contact with, and it may be on the phone. We were trained by the Brazelton method, T. Barry Brazelton out of Boston, and you use it at home, at work, with your friends, family. It's wonderful. And we did get in depth, but you know, just knowing the basics, do it for your patients and do it for your employees. When employees are happy, you're happy. And when you're happy, well, the world is happy. Okay, this is just a little insight. It may be a little confusing, but I think this is a good start. Just to understand what some of us do to try to train patients, employers, doctors, and everyone that works together. Make it a family that wants to get along, that loves patients, and that patients don't mind coming to see you at all. It can be done. Promise. One thing is, a lot of people I talk to are really not trained. They're trained in their job, but they're not trained in their customer service along with their learning skills. The customer service or patient relationship, whatever you want to call it, has got to be taught and must be attended. No excuses. And then they have to learn the skills for their employment. That is not what we do. That's not what I can do. What I do is take what I've learned from being on the wrong side of the bed rails, and it really stands out. And then talking to doctors. And many doctors don't understand why and what is going on until you point it out. So I think when we start talking about programs for this and for that, first of all, we see the dollar bills running out, and if that's the case, then maybe you have the wrong company. And someone teaching quickly, efficiently, because there's a lot to do, and how to deal with certain personalities, how to get along in the office, because we go back to the basic is success. What are the expectations of your employees and the terms and conditions? Now, you know, there's always this terms and conditions. Read this, check here, and we go. Click, and keep going. Don't do that with an employee. Never let them be caught off guard. What is their expectation and what is your expectation? What is their terms and conditions, and what are your terms and conditions. And we have had people say, I can't, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that because, and it's simply being nice, but it's going to make my workload harder. No, it doesn't. It doesn't, I promise. And studies have showed that the workload on everyone is easier and faster. So why wouldn't you want that? But you have to give and take the expectations of employees. They need to know yours, you need to know theirs. And there may need to be a compromise. But we never, ever compromise patient satisfaction.